Forbes Books presents Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow. Transformation for a new and better world. Here's David.
Today we are talking about how foundations right here at home are giving back in meaningful ways. My guest this week is Dr. Miriam Nelson, the president and CEO of the Newman's Own Foundation, an organization that has been credited for pioneering the idea of philanthropic enterprise. Miriam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
For the benefit of our listening audience and many that are not familiar with how foundations operate and see it as a secret society of writing grant proposals as a world unto its own, can you kindly and patiently demystify this for us and explain, for example, on Newman's Own, what you're looking for as well?
Yes, that's a great question. I think that many people don't really understand what foundations do, and the reality is there are many different types of foundations. Newman's Own Foundation was founded by the legendary actor, race car driver, and philanthropist Paul Newman when he decided 40 years ago to start a really radical food company and sell his delicious salad dressing, which I can get into that story if you'd like at some point in time. But then when the profits started to come in, he said, let's give it all away. And that radical idea is now 40 years old, and we're continuing on that legacy. And what we do is we take all the profits from the sale of Newman's Own delicious, high-quality foods and beverages, and then we have developed a strategy and we maximize the impact with those dollars. But it's not only the dollars. We do a lot of work around thought leadership, around networking, bringing people together, finding other funders to really amplify the work of our grantee partners. And our focus is on children, kids who face adversity. And that is something that it's a new mission. It's a more focused mission for us. And we know that it's something that Paul cared deeply about. And so we work with our partners to make sure that we can support as many kids as we possibly can and to really enhance their lives.
And whether in general, do you need to be a professional grant writer to attain money for your project? Could you help us out on that process? If someone wanted to petition Newman's Own and they were interested in getting a grant or funding for that, I'm assuming a nonprofit venture or profit venture?
Only 501c3 organizations or fiscal sponsors that have a 501c3 status can apply for a grant through us. There's some other technicalities of other organizations that can, but for the most part, it's 501c3s. And we've worked really hard over the years, and this happened even before I came into the foundation in 2020, to really lower the barriers to accessing these funds. So we identify worthy and awesome grantee partners, and then we invite them to apply. And then the application process is really quite simple. We don't want people to have a full development office or other things like that. Otherwise, we're not being as equitable as we possibly could be. So the actual application process is quite streamlined, a few pages, just so we understand what your objectives are, what your dreams are, and how we might be able to be helpful, and who the team is that we're supporting. Our history is really in, and our success has been in supporting exceptional social entrepreneurs. That's what we've really, really focused on, because that's what Paul was himself, and that's how we do our work.
Just an idea of in total aggregate dollars, and you mentioned that you get other partners to kick in as well. What is like the typical amount that is granted, and how much do you generally give away in a certain year?
Well, that varies. Newman's Own Foundation is on track to hit the 600 million mark by the late fall. So it's a big mile marker, 40 years and 600 million. And our grants are anywhere from 2,500 to multi-million-dollar grants. So it really ranges. We've got a couple of key grantee partners. One is the Serious Fun Children's Network, which is the support system for the camps for seriously ill children that Paul started in 1988 with the Hole in the Wall Gang camp. And these camps are all over the world. There are 30 camps, and they provide extraordinary, joyful experiences for children who are facing a serious illness. And they have been one of our most enduring grantee partners, and they really help to allow children to experience the joy of childhood even though they're facing illness, and to, as Paul Newman would say, raise a little hell. Another one of our larger grantee partners is Food Corps. Food Corps is an exceptional organization that is providing, using an AmeriCorps model to provide nutrition education for children in school, and also access to healthy, affordable, and culturally relevant, tasty food within schools. And there's a lot of work going on because of COVID, as you can imagine, because schools have become sort of the epicenter of nutrition security for families. And Food Corps has really been at the heart of that. So Food Corps is another one of our larger grantees. And then, so it ranges on the amount and the organizations. But our three main areas of support are seriously ill children in the camps, nutrition security in schools through Food Corps, and some National Farm to School Network and Chef Ann Foundation, some other organizations that support wholesome meals in school. And the third area is Indigenous youth and nutrition security, and we're supporting some just phenomenal social entrepreneurs in Indian country, around the country, that are really elevating food sovereignty and youth involvement in the food system. So those are the three areas that we're heavily supporting right now.
Miriam, it's almost impossible to list all that you've accomplished in the corporate world and in academia. But what do you think prepared you to take the helm at Newman's Own a few years ago?
Well, thanks for asking. And yeah, I'm old as dirt, as you can imagine. So I have some history here. No, I'm not that old, but I'm 62, and my background is in nutrition, and most of my years have been in academia, and working in social change, public health, sustainability, and public policy, especially around women's health and children's health. And I had the good fortune of, with a colleague of mine at Tufts University, Chris Konamos, working on a really large project where we ended up partnering with the First Lady, Michelle Obama, and Let's Move, and a decade-long project to really improve the lives of children through physical activity and nutrition. And when you're looking at large national scope and you're thinking about how do you create sustainable change, you really develop a strategy expertise that relates to policy, relates to communications, relates to networking, relates to how do you create systemic change. And all of that work, I think, really prepared me well when I came to Newman's Own as the president and CEO of Newman's Own Foundation in January of 2020, right before the pandemic happened. So that work has really, we've taken a fresh look at our work to make sure that we're being as impactful as possible. And the other is that I actually started at Newman Zone, besides drinking lemonade and eating popcorn and using the salad dressing growing up. I started as a grantee partner. So when I was at Tufts University, I received some funding and that helped to support an after-school program we were working on. And then I was on the board of the food company for 5 years before I came to the foundation. So I was pretty deep into Newman Zone. I have to say, if I might, that I've always just been fascinated by Newman Zone. Understanding the governance structure, understanding how radically good Paul Newman was, it always was an anomaly out there. And, we sell products to support a cause. We don't use a cause to promote products. And we're really different. And that's how Paul set it up. And I maybe it's a question back to you, David, but I think, because I think you're a Tufts grad as well, and this whole podcast is about sustainable growth and transformative leadership. And we need more companies to be radically good. 40 years ago, Paul set up the very first truly purpose-driven brand. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to do better at telling that story so people really understand it, because I think we've lost our way after Paul died a little bit. So that was really important. But I think there's an inherent tension there. We want more organizations. They don't have to be exactly like us and give 100% away, but we wish more companies were more truly purpose-driven.
It's true. No, I've been involved in various things at Tufts, and we set up recently over at the nutrition school the Food and Nutrition Innovation Institute, which we take people from the insurance world, the food world, and also the medical world, and our focus is on health and improvement of health, and it just coalesces with good business as well and profits, and I think that's why it's been so successful and popular. You were the Associate Dean at Tufts University's Tisch College of Civic Life and founder of the John Hancock Research Center on Physical Activity, Nutrition, and Obesity Prevention at the Friedman School. And what we have found throughout these food companies and all these companies is entrepreneurship is synergistic for both people and business. Can you tell me about your time at these places and what you accomplished and what it meant to you?
Yeah, I've had so much luck and hard work. And I was at Tufts University for 35 years, second class at the Friedman School, and was there for a very long time. And then, as you said, I went to the Tisch College of Civic Life with Alan Solomon for several years. My original work was around women and strong women, and doing research around women in their 50s and 60s, which at the time was considered quite old, and looking at how strength training actually really reversed the aging process. And that went into, if I might just say a little bit about strong women books that I wrote. First book was Strong Women Stay Young, which became a New York Times bestseller. And I wrote 10 books after that, or 9 more books after that, of which I think 5 were New York Times bestsellers. But what I was able to do with that platform was to take the research, the wisdom of the communities we were working within, and develop a public health program that is now operating in many states across the country, in terms of civic engagement and women empowerment and nutrition and physical activity through Strong Women. And that work really helped me understand how to create social change. That, along with the work that we were doing with Let's Move and First Lady Michelle Obama. And I've taken all of that and brought it to Newman Zone. I think when you've had a almost 4-decade of professional life, you gain insights from every single bit of that work. You glean If I might use the agricultural term, you glean insights into how to create change. And I've really brought that full toolkit to Newman Zone. And that's what, with my colleagues at Newman Zone, we're really looking at how we can create sustainable change in various different areas. And so that's and be radically good. We just need more organizations to be radically good. The world needs that right now.
It certainly does. And you alluded to it in the past, and I just want to focus on it a little bit. A big part of your life has been educating and leading initiatives around nutrition and obesity, whether it was Tufts or co-founding Child Obesity 180, which is supported through, First Lady Michelle Obama, Let's Move campaign. Why has that been such a big focus for you?
For me, it's personal. I grew up as I was an athlete in middle school and high school, and actually wasn't planning to go to college, which is so funny now because then I ended up staying at college for so long. So performance is where I started from. That was my platform. And nutrition, physical activity are so important for performance. And then I started to understand it became less about performance and more about public health. And then it became more around, I kept going upstream to, well, if it's around public health, you have to look at public policy, you have to look at systems, you have to look at behavioral economics. And then it gets really interesting because then it's not just about me, it's about a much bigger population. And so that's where it all started, was really just being personally curious about performance. And then that ended up being a springboard for public health and creating sustainable change.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, Miriam, we have to stop right here. But coming up in the second part of my talk with Dr. Miriam Nelson, the president and CEO of the Newman Zone Foundation, Miriam discusses the legacy of Paul Newman.
We're working to tell his story so that people understand all that he did, and that he really he was a good person in his heart. So I like to think that he will continue to be remembered for all that he did and all that he stood up for.
To connect with David, go to davidradlow.com. David's book set, The Principles of Cartel Disruption and Secret Stories of Leadership, Growth, and Innovation, are available wherever books are sold. This has been Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow, a presentation of Forbes Books.